Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Brentwood. We'll start today with an invocation led by George Johnson, and then the pledge and four-way test will be led by Michael Kaplan. Bless you.
Good afternoon, and let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, you have loved us and blessed us in so many ways. We're thankful for all that you've given us and all that you've blessed us with, and ask you to continue to bless our Rotary locally, that we can continue to do good in the community and help people. And we ask you to also continue to bless Rotary International in its fight against polio, and also in doing many other things to help people. Father, we ask you to be with several of our members, Roger Reed, Bill McCarthy, Leon Partain, Sue Caines. My wife Denise, she continues cancer treatment, and particularly the family of Rick Finke and his loss this week. Again, Father, we love you and we ask you to bless us in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Now will everybody join me for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Now the four-way test for what we think, say, and do. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. We certainly hope so. Good afternoon, everyone. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Is it on? It's on.
It is.
I got this thing like right in my face. I'm just gonna have to yell. All right, here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Drew Rogers. I'm the president-elect for this club. Thank you for being here. We have a great group today. We have a number of distinguished guests that will probably not require any introduction, but I'm going to let Rotarians introduce them anyway. So I'm going to start with Sheila Cleveland on this side.
Hello, this is Paul Sheriff, my lifetime partner, I guess, or boyfriend.
Welcome, Paul. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. I've got Ray Little introducing somebody that needs no introduction.
I think all of y'all know Kirk, the best city manager in the United States. So honored to have him with me today as my guest.
Another guest who requires no introduction, I'm going to ask Dick Bowers to introduce a visiting Rotarian.
Visiting Rotarian is Mr. Kim Kim. Stand up, Mr. Kim Kim. Mr. Kim Kim, in addition to being my good friend and my roommate whenever we go to zone institutes and district conferences, he is an author, and he just gave me 13 of his books to give to my ESL learners. One successful immigrant passing on the English language to another. Welcome.
Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Finally, Kip Dotson has a guest that he'd like to introduce you to.
This is Dean Baker. I've known Dean since the days when I lived in Antioch. Y'all didn't know I lived in Antioch, did you? That was back in the 90s. But he is a shipping logistics company owner. So if you know anything, we need to know anything about shipping, he knows what's up. He's a Blaze coach. He's my neighbor back, and I'm glad he's here today.
Wonderful. Dean, thank you for being here. Kim, Kirk, Paul, thank you for being here today. With that, President Jane, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And I am now going to turn it to Jeff Brown, who's going to lead us in Happy Bucks.
Hello. Are we there? Come in. I'm going to
start off. Got some health issues out of the way. Played golf for the first time this week in 9 months and actually made some decent shots. So that was a happy thing to do. And I got my Purple Martin house up this week. I'm already starting to get some tenants. So I'm a very happy guy. Who's next? Here we go.
Jared had his operation last Friday. I picked him up this morning and he looks great.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm happy because we have 4 RILA scholarship applications that got approved. 3 are from John Overton and 1 from Brentwood.
Just thanks to Vanderbilt and your wonderful medical staff.
Evie.
I'm a banker, so I'm going to swipe my card. I will have to pay PayPal. But thank you to those of you who came out to our ribbon cutting yesterday. Several of you were there. We were happy to see you. And several of you were such loyal Rotarians that you went to a different branch because you couldn't make it to that one. So we thank you as well. Thank y'all. It's great to be part of this club.
Just to echo what Gary just said about Kirk being here, this city staff is unbelievable. And it's the best political cover that any commissioner could ever want because everything gets taken care of. So you can just walk around and look good and get elected.
And speaking of getting elected, and I can do this unselfishly because I'm not running this time. Our municipal election is this Tuesday. The 3 voting sites are the Brenthaven Presbyterian Church, Franklin Road, the Brentwood Library, and of course the Safety Center East. And it is an uncontested race, but do your civic duty and go and vote on Tuesday from 7 to 7. Thank you.
No, I'm not a guest. I am a member. I want to reintroduce myself. This is not about me. It's about my grandson, Jack Ketchel, who is 14 years old and runs track at MBA. And he is now running in the 4s on the mile run. And today is the finals. And it's he leaves the whole pack way behind. He's just racing against the clock. But I want to hear it for Jack Ketchel.
Awesome.
Devin McClendon. Oh, no, it's Alan Treadway. Sorry.
Oh, no. I just wanted to let everybody know that the carpets are being cleaned over at the Martin Center, and everybody's doing well over there.
Who else? Is that it? Okay.
Is that all our happiness?
That's it.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we now have a few announcements. The first one is about our golf tournament. Mr. Golf himself, Larry Kane.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Am I on? Can you on?
Adjustment. For
Talk louder.
Sorry, I think the microphone was
All right.
low.
Is that good? You're here? Okay. Golf tournament, give you a quick report. I'll give you a quick report, but I want to remind you of something. I talked a little bit about it 2 weeks ago. There are probably between now and September the 11th, our tournament, there's probably at least 100 golf tournaments just like ours in Nashville and Middle Tennessee. No kidding. Today, Friday's a busy day for them. Mondays are really busy days. There may be this coming Monday. I bet there's probably 5 or 6 golf tournaments. Point being, if you're trying to sell a sponsorship to someone, don't let those other tournaments get in front of you. Just keep that in mind. Because there's a lot of people out there with their hands out, just like ours, wanting to sell sponsorship. So the quicker we get on it, the better we're going to do. So how quick are we on it? We've sold 39 sponsorships in 2 weeks. 35 of those were major sponsorships, meaning over $500. So congratulations to all those who contributed to that. Congratulations, especially to our mayor, who sold 4 sponsorships over the last 2 weeks. And to and that table right there rocks, because Mr. McClendon, sitting right down from him, also sold 4 to the tune of $5,000. So, and they're just starting. They both tell me that they're just starting. So that's the kind of stuff we need to hear every week. And I hope all of y'all will take note of that and how well they've done here in a quick 2-week span. This is a crazy question. Who solicited playing fields in Franklin? Did anybody in here do that? I got a sponsorship from playing fields. No, from center field in Franklin.
Bert's trying to lie.
Oh, is that yours? It's not. Okay. Nobody. Okay. It didn't have a name on it, and I don't know who sent it. So, oh yeah, Chuck Blackburn. All right. So I'll remind you, even though it sounds like, wow, you've sold 39 sponsorships, I'll remind you we have left a $5,000 platinum sponsor, which is very attractive because it has 8 playing spots in it. So if somebody says, well, I want to get a team in, you can get 2 teams in with that. We've got 3 hole-in-one sponsors at $1,000 each left. We've got 9 premium hole sponsors at $750. We've got 8 hazard sponsors at $500, and we've got 6 side scoreboard sponsors at $1,000 each. We sold all of those last year. Every one of those categories was sold out. So those are out there though. So don't think if you look online and you see sold, which is good, that we're sold out. We're not sold out. We've got a lot left to sell. And of course, hole-in-one sponsors, Jared's going to get a lot of those, but we got to get the rest of them. We sold almost 100 of those last year, and we sold 4 so far. So we got a long time to go. I'm not sweating anything yet, but I just did want to remind y'all there's a lot of competition out there for that sponsorship dollar. Let's don't lose track of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Jennifer Bourne, who also needs the microphone at this level. Watch out for the.
Okay, so well, first of all, Laura asked me, speaking of golf tournaments, the Agape one is on Monday. So if you guys are interested in that, please get in touch with Laura. But tomorrow night, casino night. Jeez. All right. Well, there are 50 of you signed up, or 52-ish. So a couple things I want to bring out. Marie, the dress code, because she is not the only one who's asked. Evening casual, not golf wear, but just show up. I'm going to wear jeans and maybe a nice blouse. So you don't have to dress. It's not fancy, but just look nice, but not too nice. It is from 7 to 10. On the website, it said 7 to 9. We have the casino people booked from 7 to 10. So please plan appropriately, because it's going to be a lot of fun and you're not going to want to leave by 9. Any other questions about tomorrow night? There will be heavy hors d'oeuvres. I'm sorry? Oh, geez. No, but when I beat them tomorrow, they're going to know pretty quick. I'm just kidding. It is at Andrews Cadillac tomorrow night. So please be there. If you can't be right at 7, no big deal. Just come. It's till 10 o'clock and it is BYOB. So any other questions? We're going to have fun. See you tomorrow.
And then the final announcement for today, I think everybody got the sad news via email that we lost our beloved member, Dr. Rick Finke, this past week. We have learned that his family is not going to have a service that we can attend. So it's going to be a family only service, and they are considering some sort of visitation later, and will let us know. So just wanted to make sure. I've had several questions about the arrangements and wanted to make sure you all knew that, but the club will certainly send something to his wife, on behalf of all of us. So that is it for now. And Drew, President-elect Drew, is going to introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you, Jane. I didn't size up our speakers today, but I figured I would not complicate things by trying to get the microphone back up and then if it had to go back down. So I'm just going to go with the handheld, but you're welcome to use it if you'd like to. One of my favorite Facebook pages, I don't know if anybody is on Facebook or not. I'm sure that some of you are. Is a page called Nashville Then. Is anybody show it hands? Anybody familiar with that Nashville Then? Okay. So it's all these pictures of what Nashville looked like back in the 80s, 90s, and kind of before. And as someone that's not really a Nashville native, I was born here, but I wasn't raised here. I consider myself a Nashville native because I've been here for 20 years. I still do remember when George Jones had a gift shop on Demumbrian. And I remember what, downtown looked like, and that my parents would have to like close my eyes when we went down 8th Avenue. And so really, our program today is very timely, especially in light of this week's council approval of the Titans Stadium to build a new stadium on the east bank of the Cumberland River. But today's program is not necessarily about the Titans Stadium, but it's about what future Nashvillians will say 30 years from now when they have the new Nashville Then Facebook page or whatever it is at the time, because they'll say that they remember when the only thing worth going to on the east bank of the Cumberland River was Topgolf, church, or a Titans game. And that the rest of it was all dotted with industrial properties, a really big scrapyard, a truck stop, and hotels that were in some stage of blight. It's really hard to imagine what it will turn into now that things are going to be progressing with the redevelopment, with the new Titan Stadium, the Oracle campus, expanded bike lanes, and pedestrian bridges that will connect our city in ways that we really can't even think about right now. But fortunately for us, we have somebody here that's going to help us imagine what this will look like. And so to start off, we have actually two people that are going to help us envision what that'll look like. Anna Grider is joining us from the Metro Nashville Planning Department, which has been integrally involved in reshaping our region's downtown riverfront. Anna joined the Metro Nashville Planning Department in 2016 as a community planner. She's passionate about community engagement and long-range planning and has been a key part of several critical planning projects for Nashville. Most recently, Anna has led the Imagine East Bank Vision Plan and the Dickerson North Corridor Study. She holds a bachelor's degree in human geography from the University of Sheffield, England, and a master's degree in urban studies from the University of Oklahoma. Before moving to Nashville, Anna worked for the planning departments of the city of Broken Arrow and the city of Oklahoma City, and for the Institute for Quality Communities at the University of Oklahoma. Please welcome Anna Grider.
I'll go with this one. Thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome. Everyone hear me okay? Yes, if my accent is confusing, I was born and raised in England and have lived in the States for the last 20 plus years. So it's a mess. But yes, I have had the honor for the last 2 years of working on Imagine East Bank. And so if I could just kind of gauge from the room, if you could raise your hand if you're somewhat familiar with some of the planning work that's been going on for the East Bank. Okay, good. Because that gives me a sense of which slides I might be able to skip so we can move it along. So I'm going to provide an overview of that planning process and then some of the implementation work that we're working on today. And then Richel will provide us an update on some of the other things the planning department does because there's a lot going on in Nashville. So the Imagine East Bank Vision Plan is the largest, most complex planning project that the department has ever undertaken, aside from our Nashville Next comprehensive plan. It took 21 months, over 50 public meetings, multiple stakeholder meetings, multiple visits to council, planning commission, and lots of coordination with the various property owners on the East Bank. The impetus for this planning process was the arrival or the agreement for Oracle, which is, I don't know, there's a laser. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that might be the laser. I can't see it. Anyway, so Oracle's. Oh, okay. Never mind. So number 3, way at the top, Oracle, their tech campus. agreement to come to River North. And then number 1 is the old truck stop. It is now closed and vacated. That was purchased by a group out of Boston. And then number 4 is obviously discussions around Titan Stadium. And then number 2 is MDHA's mixed use, mixed income redevelopment of Casey Homes. So all of this was going on. And as a planning department, we looked at the East Bank and were terrified about the density that was being considered or being proposed to us because the infrastructure is sorely lacking. We have a lot of substantial bridges, the interstate, the river, a lot of industrial property, and no direct north-south connection through this area. So if you're familiar, when you've gone to Titans games or other events on the East Bank, you have to kind of rabbit warren your way to the interstate or to where you're trying to get to. So we, as a planning department, decided, hey, we need to take a really holistic look at the East Bank. We need to understand where we need street connections. We want to make this a great neighborhood for all Nashvillians. We don't want to piecemeal large scale development and end up with a mess of traffic and different heights and no character. This is such a generational opportunity to shape directly across our downtown. So here is the East Bank today, again, kind of showing you the current condition. It's 338 acres. Anybody want to guess how many acres are parking lots? 250? Any other? 103? Very specific. Okay, the very specific number is 127. So that is a huge amount of surface parking. And then there's another 103 acres that's just asphalt pavement. We don't think that's the best use of this land directly across from our downtown. Again, no continuous north-south street connections. A little bit of park space that's been established with Cumberland Park, and there's a small amount of greenway today. No housing units, and I'm sure as many of you are aware, we have a housing supply issue in Nashville. So for this part of our downtown to be providing no units is an issue. And then we have 1.7 miles total of riverfront, but just 0.25 of that is riverfront you can access, which is essentially in front of the stadium. And we have the joy of 3 interstate interchanges within 1.7 miles, which leads to a lot of people using the interstate as a local road, because you just hop on and hop off because the access is difficult. So the East Bank today needs a lot of help. So we started out with our vision plan, which is the aspiration for the future, embodying all the community priorities we heard throughout the process, defining the scope of the opportunity and looking at best practices for community building. It's not detailed engineering or design plans. So the renderings you see are not exactly what's going to be built there, but they're the intention and the inspiration for future development on the East Bank. Some of the aspects that we worked on, we went into much more technical detail than a vision plan would typically go in terms of mobility in particular, as well as resiliency with floodplain management. And there'll be some more details on that as we go along. So the vision plan is available on our website. It's 140 pages and was adopted October 6th of last year. And that will help guide the Planning Commission in future zone changes that may be applied for. And so we approach the vision plan with 3 different scales, given how pivotal the location of the East Bank is in our city's systems. So we looked at a very broad system-wide network. How can the East Bank be a connector to Murfreesboro and Lebanon Pike and north to Whites Creek Pike and Brick Church Pike? Then we looked at it from a neighborhood scale, the 338 acres, figuring out what the character of that area should be. And then we took a close look at the 113 acres that are Metro-owned land. And so this is just a summary of the amount of engagement we did. Again, 21 months. We had all different types of ways to engage, both in person and online. Got a huge amount of feedback from the community. And these became the 4 chapters in the vision plan and the 4 priorities: safe and simple multimodal connections, equity and affordability, respect for the river, and creating neighborhoods for Nashvillians. So just hitting on a slide or 2 on each of these. So equity and affordability was both working with the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force to establish benchmarks for the first phase of development of Metro-owned land in terms of affordable housing. We also looked at how do we create spaces on the East Bank that are accessible to all, whether you are wealthy or not. You can go and enjoy the park, the greenway, the things on the East Bank. We looked at it in a mobility lens. So if you don't own a car, how do you get through and enjoy the East Bank? So looking at transit, sidewalks, greenways, bike lanes. And here's a rendering of what that could look like along the East Bank with a bike lane and a pedestrian greenway along the edge. Again, as I said, we went into a lot of detail in collaboration with NDOT, the Nashville Department of Transportation, to look at the mobility system. The way you lay out the streets really establishes the neighborhood character. We want to have an urban street grid here, and that doesn't exist today. So how do we establish that? What's most efficient and effective? So you'll see from this slide, the blue line does not exist today. That blue line is the new East Bank Boulevard. We're working on that in partnership with TDOT. And that would be the main spine. It would have dedicated bus rapid transit lanes, 1 on each side of a center median. So that would be our first street in Nashville that's built with dedicated transit lanes. And we looked at how that could connect throughout the city. Again, a little hard to see because the streets are white, but you kind of see how the urban grid is downtown, and you look across the river, and that's sorely lacking. Through the East Bank plan and street network, we hope to establish a street grid that creates that urban environment and multiple ways to get to and through the area. So here's a rendering of what that boulevard could look like: wide sidewalks, opportunity for sidewalk dining, and then some on-street parking, travel lanes, and then bus lanes in the middle. So you'd get off in the center and cross at the crossings. Again, with transit today, we just have WeGo Central. So if you're riding transit, you have to come into WeGo Central downtown and then transfer out to where you are looking to go. Through the East Bank, we've set aside land for a mobility hub. This would be where you could transfer buses, you could leave your bike, there is intended to be affordable housing built on top of it. And that would fit into the system of mobility hubs that WeGo is building, 1 on Clarksville Pike and then a planned 1 in Sobro. Here is the blue lines are our current bike lanes. So not a whole lot going on there for bikers. The long one that goes across the screen is actually KVB. So I very rarely see anybody taking their life in their hands to use that. So we want to create a bike network that is available on James Robertson and Woodland Street. So you have more east-west connections, and then also along the river, and is designed for both options for commuters who are just wanting to get to their place of business, and bike lanes that you can take your kids on and enjoy at a slower pace. Here's the idea of a grade separated buffered bike lane that would provide some connectivity. Greenways, again, the solid green lines are our greenways. The dash lines are ones that are planned. With the East Bank plan, we want to include opportunities to go further east. And then with the Oracle pedestrian bridge, you then really create a loop from Shelby Bottoms all the way through the East Bank, over to Germantown, through downtown, and back over the pedestrian bridge. So you're really filling in a lot of gaps in our system. Here's an example of a greenway along the river, which moves into a sidewalk, which moves into the protected bike lanes, and then into the street. The river, we have a great asset in our river. We don't really embrace it, particularly on the East Bank. So this river chapter really covers two things. One, resiliency. We know that this area is prone to flooding, and it has flooded in the past. So a lot of work on resiliency and designing sustainably here, as well as the desire that we heard from the community to be able to be closer to the river, whether that's getting in the river for boating or kayaking, or walking along the river, or dining by the river. Just the opportunity to be close to the river that we don't have today, because the banks are very steep and bluffy and overgrown and hindered by industrial uses. So there's a great deal of work that went into designing so that the development around it is not putting people in danger of flooding. One of the big pieces of that is the East Bank Park. You'll see in some of the renderings a Central Park, which would be a district-wide stormwater management strategy. So rather than parcel by parcel, people have to take care of their stormwater. They could rely on the park and pay into its facility. And that would help because of the topography of the land. The ridge lines would bring the water through the park, and it can be slowed and stored, have water quality, and then go out to the river. And there's an image of the park looking from a new stadium across a large park, and then over to the river and downtown. And then we looked at other ways to get close to the river. So there are kind of smaller things you can do, like greenways and overlooks. And then there are larger scale things you can explore, like docks and marinas. And so we wanted to put the scale of the opportunity out there in the vision plan, and we'll see what development and investment comes. And then finally, neighborhoods for Nashvillians. We heard a lot from the community that there isn't much desire to extend Broadway to the East Bank. There's a lot of desire for local, family-friendly things to do on the East Bank, and not just bringing honky-tonks over here. So we took a look at how to establish kind of a place that's attractive to locals as well as tourists. We're not going to ban tourists from coming to the East Bank, but that the opportunities are really family-friendly. So we broke the study area into 4 different neighborhoods and have some design guidelines and standards for the public realm. And throughout the process, well, not throughout, but for the first year of the process, we were working under the assumption that the stadium was remaining in place and being renovated. Halfway through the study, the Titans said, hey, we might actually just build a new stadium. So we had to kind of re-envision what that could look like and what the opportunities were if that was the case. So as of this Tuesday, we now know that we're going with option A. But throughout this process, that hadn't been finalized. So we're grateful that we have direction there. And so I'm just going to quickly hit on some of the things we've been working on since the plan was adopted in October. And this is the full vision plan, taking into account everything that's happening in River North and Oracle. So we put together some guidance for complete streets on the East Bank that will help both developers and Metro when we're looking at how to establish this new street grid. So it includes street design, right-of-way, curb cuts, and access points. So this is a document we worked with in collaboration with NDOT, so developers know, hey, there's a planned street here. Let's talk about how that is going to work. We also have filed for a couple of grants that we hope we are successful in receiving. One on building resilient communities to explore that district-wide stormwater management strategy, and one in collaboration with NDOT for the new East Bank Boulevard to get to environmental approvals and 60% design of the boulevard. We've also been working on the defining how redevelopment on the East Bank should occur, in particular for the Metro-owned portion. And so currently we have an RFQ out for a master developer to help Metro with what we call the initial development area. Those are the green and red blocks. So we're in the solicitation process to find that entity. And then we hope to soon release an RFP for a program management team for the implementation on the East Bank. Metro Nashville is not a developer, and so we need help and professionals to develop this to the best advantage of the city. And finally, private development. There's only 113 acres of Metro-owned land. All the rest of it is privately owned. So we have to coordinate with all the different entities, some of which are very large scale, like Oracle. Some are kind of 1.5 acre parcel. So we have been working with Oracle, the Landings in River North, which is the new multifamily housing, Station East, which is the branding name for the truck stop, obviously working closely with the Titans, and then all the other private property owners to help guide this vision along into its fruition. I think that's my last slide. So I'm going to introduce Richel, and then I think we're both happy to take any questions you have. So Richel Albright is my colleague at the planning department. She's the planning's communications director, and she works with our senior leadership and staff to create in the creation of strategic communications and community outreach plans from a range of scales. Like she worked very much on the East Bank, also on redistricting and some other items she's going to hit on. Prior to joining Metro Planning, Richel was the communications director in Chattanooga for Mayor Andy Burke, where she worked to advance the priorities of the Burke administration, shine a light on department projects, as well as handle communications and outreach during crises. She is a Nashville native and graduated with a journalism degree from MTSU.
Thanks, Anna. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. So I'm going to be really brief. So we are growing as a city, and that includes the region as well. Our department, I guess through our most recent budget allocations last year, and I think we may be getting a couple more, we're going to be comprising of 80 staff members. And that is divided into several divisions. Long range planning, current planning, so thinking about how downtown is growing and a lot of the towers you see going up there, as well as operations, things like mapping, GIS, HR. And our newest division is housing. This is the first ever housing division Metro Nashville has had. And they emphasize policy for affordable and attainable housing, as well as protecting and building new affordable housing. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different projects going on. Someone mentioned Antioch earlier. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Hickory Hollow Mall, which is now called Global Mall. About a year ago, Mayor Cooper made an announcement that Metro would be purchasing this site. And so this is, as you can see, the mall site itself is 78 acres, but it's about 350 overall. In 2020, the census showed that Southeast Nashville is the fastest growing area in Metro Nashville. And so we wanted to make sure that this site could not only serve residents, but bring forward business and quality of life aspects for this area. So based on community feedback, we have identified a handful of goals for the Global Mall site. Folks want to see arts opportunities, education and workforce space. There's already a library and a community center that is widely used down there. KIPP also has space down there, as well as Nashville State Community College. Think about environmental resiliency components as well. Mobility, there is a small hub for WeGo, our transit in the area, but we want to make sure we expand that and thinking about all the folks that are currently driving up I-24 and all the traffic that causes and going into town for work. And then also thinking about land use. So this is kind of the first initial draft that we have released to the public based on their feedback. You know, again, it's what Anna kind of talked about quite a bit with East Bank, walkable, livable communities, finding places where they can interact with, you know, whether that be shops, education spaces, healthcare. There is the possibility of working with Vanderbilt or another healthcare provider for some space in that area. Very similar, and I can't remember what it is called. I live in the area and I should know. Right across from Fresh Markets, the kind of walkable area that you guys had there where there's the hotel. I'm looking at you.
City Center.
Yeah, City Park. Thank you. So having that walkable, there's dining, there's shopping, there's, you know, hotels as well. And so, you know, we are kind of making our way through that progress for this study. We just held our second public workshop, and let's see, let me make sure the project manager gave me some notes on that. We received approximately comments from approximately 100 people. And we are continuing to take feedback based on those initial renderings that we have shown. We're going to use that much like we did with East Bank to kind of, East Bank has been really helpful actually in thinking about some of these larger scale projects of making sure that we are taking the feedback, showing a vision based on that feedback, and then we would take it to the planning commission for adoption. We will have another round of workshops as we draft the master plan. It's kind of coming up soon. We haven't set that yet, but we are hoping to have a final master plan kind of at the end of this fiscal year. And then another large project that I don't have as many graphics on, but I'll briefly explain, is the Edge Hill study. This is a significant African-American urban neighborhood south of downtown. It experienced substantial changes during urban renewal. The department is conducting a project to develop a new neighborhood-wide plan, and this is anticipated to take 6 months. We just had our second public meeting, and we are, working with the community to understand the vision and physical character, again, much like what we've done with East Bay. That way, as development continues to come, we can kind of say, hey, this is what the community would like to see as a vision, rather than responding and reacting to developers and their plans. And then redistricting. In 2021, we went through the routine process of creating new districts based on population. You may have seen in the news that we were working on potentially having to cut Metro Council from 40 members to 20. The planning department's role in redistricting is a little bit different than a lot of other places. We are the ones who work on the maps, draw those. Planning commission then makes a recommendation to council for the maps to adopt, rather than in Chattanooga, where I previously was, it is the city council that works on drawing those boundaries. April 10th was our deadline based on the state law to recommend new maps. On April 10th, the Chancery Court placed an injunction on this process. We are just a few months away from an election. So they said, you know, this is a little bit too soon. There will be an ongoing, I believe, court case to determine whether or not that law will go into effect in 2027, and we will have to redistrict prior to that. So as of this time, we are kind of halting that. The election in August will go forward as 35 districts, 5 at large. This is the map that was adopted in early 2021, or excuse me, early 2022, and will be used for this upcoming election. Again, we are unclear what will happen in 2027. And that's it. I wanted to be really brief, so you guys can ask questions. Thank you.
My first question is about the new Titans Stadium. Where's parking going to be?
A planner's favorite question, parking. parking is going to end up being in a lot of structured parking rather than surface parking. So the East Bank is going to be a construction zone for quite a while. We will have the old stadium has to remain operational until the new stadium is ready. So they'll have various surface parking lots that aren't currently being developed that will have parking. And then eventually the new stadium will open, the old stadium will be torn down. So there are kind of interim agreements. For example, with the truck stop site, they have 18 acres. That's mostly surface parking. So they're working with the Titans on providing parking for Taylor Swift and other events that are coming up. And so there's going to be just kind of a moving process of like which surface lots are available at which point, who's developing what. So that'll be all in coordination, but ultimately we'll have some structured parking. We also hope that by providing so many transit, pedestrian, bikeways, greenways, that people will walk from other places or ride the bus from other places to get to the stadium. So there would be less kind of single occupancy vehicles going to and through the area.
I know the Music City Grand Prix just renewed for another 3 years. Is that correct?
I don't know that for sure. In our discussions with them, this year's Grand Prix will like go ahead, but future ones are going to be really difficult to do on
Are we
these.
just expecting the track to change as the city changes, or kind of what's the game plan there?
I think we're kind of recommending a different circuit while things are under construction on the East Bank. So still likely in Nashville, but not through the East Bank.
On the East Bank, I'm a Nashville native, and I've always heard one of the problems with developing was scrapyard. Is that part of the plan to be redeveloped? And is that, I guess, that land's been bought?
No, the land is still privately owned. And so the scrap metal firm that is currently operating there is leasing that land. And so they're part of the vision plan, but is privately owned. So until something changes, we've laid out a street grid and design for that site, but we need to have that in collaboration with whoever the owner is going to be. So for now, that's more of a long term. Our immediate focus is the Metro owned property because that's things that we control. But we hope ultimately that as the area changes, that area will change with it.
Yeah. With regard to the Titan Stadium, the proposed new stadium, and the transition, there's a lot of moving parts. And where the old stadium is going to be is that going to be a MDHA headed thing like Rolling Mill Hills was, where they take over, they're deeded the property, and then it's distributed to developers from there? How exactly is that going to work?
So everything is going to be under ground leases. Metro is not selling any of its land. So it will all be ground leases. MDHA owns a small portion, the bridge building, and a little small portion of the riverfront. The rest is Metro owned, and then the Sports Authority has some control on the stadium design, but everything else is Metro owned and will be 99-year ground leases. I can try to. It's basically everything between Woodland and KVB for the most part. There's a couple of parcels that are privately owned, but it's basically that central Woodland to KVB section. Yeah.
So I'll talk to you later about some real estate tips, stuff like that, please. But baseball is a big rumor, and I thought, could you give us some insight as to whether there was ever a baseball park in there, or is that somewhere else? Or
yeah, we haven't worked with any kind of entity with baseball for the East Bank, so I'm not familiar. I have heard that Major League Baseball is interested in Nashville, but it's not an entity we've specifically worked with. We've been working some with TPAC since they have to vacate their building. So there's an opportunity for some cultural things on the East Bank, which we think would be really good for again, serving locals and families, but not baseball. But who knows? Yes. Well, no, it wouldn't be it's all Metro owned. The stadium, the land, it's all Metro owned. So the intent is that it's a shared parking deal, because we want this area to be active both on event days, but also on non-event days when there's not anything happening at the stadium. We still want this to be a vibrant, awesome neighborhood that people want to hang out in. So yes, it's all going to be shared parking. And again, we hope folks will use other options than the car. Yeah. So the parking will be required for folks who are living there as well. So again, maybe that's something that is shared, or say, for example, if they're off working somewhere else and an office worker is working on the East Bank can park there. So there's all going to be some magical discussions behind that. But yes, we know parking is still very important.
So Metro Nashville Council passed the new stadium. A sizable group of Nashvillians decided that that really wasn't a very good deal, and there was a lot of opposition to it. From a purely planning point of view, are you happy with the deal?
Wow. Yeah, we can answer.
This plan, when you think about things that people want to access, they want to have access to parks and green spaces where they all feel welcome. That was something we heard a lot of during the community engagement, especially from folks who live in Casey Homes, which is just right, across the interstate, basically. Hey, are you just going to build somewhere that we aren't welcome? No, we want to have places that everyone feels welcome. So having that park, having that greenway that connects not only, to Shelby Park, but also over with a new bridge that Oracle is committed to building, now connects Germantown to East Nashville in a way that does not currently exist. I think this gives us some things that can enhance the quality of life for folks. But understand that $2.2 billion is a hefty price tag. I'm sure we're not carrying the full weight of that, but it is still a lot, and I understand people's concerns. But I do think from an urban design, and I'm not a planner, but an urban design standpoint, this makes a lot of sense to move the stadium closer to the interstate, especially with the idea of developing neighborhoods around a stadium. It's, that's not super common, especially for something the scale that we've seen, the Manica drawings. I think this gives us a better possibility for incorporating a true neighborhood around a large sporting and entertainment venue. Do you have any other?
No, I mean, I will say that we were a year into the planning when the idea of moving the stadium was announced. So I did have a slight breakdown that week, having to revisit a lot of previous work. But I do think, as Richel said, pushing it towards the interstate, for people who are driving in and out of the stadium, that's easier access, less impactful on the rest of the area. And then it really does open up the riverfront. You're directly looking across to downtown. So I do think from a planning perspective, there's some great advantages there. So I'm not a financial person. I'm just a planner. I don't know what was included in that. I don't know. There's a 900-page site coordination and stadium agreement document that includes everything that is in the dollar amount that Metro is issuing as bonds. So it includes infrastructure for the stadium. So it's not just the stadium building, but infrastructure needed to operate the stadium. I think it includes that, but I don't want to commit to that because I didn't read all 900 pages of the agreement.
I think the answer to that is you just have to knock it on a corner and it'll just fall down. I know that
Sorry. I believe they're looking at 2027.
I know that in the past, a lot of the kind of conversation as it relates to the neighborhoods to the east has been how do they connect into whatever becomes kind of the River North, Oracle development, stadium, all that. And that there had been conversations about how you have those neighborhoods, which are all historical Nashville neighborhoods, actually connect into this new, side of downtown. Is there still consideration given? I know at McFerrin, there was a tunnel talked about. I know that a lot of that, how do y'all plan to actually connect them through a major arterial interstate?
Yeah. So if you look up at you have to picture that most of these streets don't exist today that's on the screen. So the Cleveland Street extension, that's a partnership with TDOT. And that would either be over or under the interstate. So that would bring Cleveland Street down through Cowan, the East Bank Boulevard. And then Grace Street, which is next to McFerrin Park, is designed to be a bike and pedestrian only connection, either under or over. So that really, and then there's a greenway planned along the railroad through the truck stop site. So that is another connection. And then a lot of improvements planned for James Robertson and Woodland Street to make them much more multimodal in nature, to feel safer, whether that's like building an additional bike lane. People have done that in other cities where they've kind of built the bike lane next to the bridge. So, I mean, attached to the bridge, but it's like an appendage of the bridge. And then obviously the pedestrian bridge that we have today, the Siegenthaler, there's interest in extending where it lands on the East Bank. So having multiple options to get off the pedestrian bridge. If you just want to go to the riverfront, you can get off there. If you're going to a Titans game, it'll bring you closer to the stadium. So yeah, we've been exploring a lot of ways to have that east-west connectivity.
Anna and Richel, we give gifts to our speakers, which is a pin with our club's logo on it. We also read this little book, which teaches Rotary's values to first graders. And we ask our speakers to autograph a copy, and we tell the kids about our speakers when we read the book that you signed. So I'll hand those to you. If you'll sign and just leave it on the table. Linus, what do we do about tables and chairs? I didn't ask that. Do we need?
I have no idea.
We have no idea. How's that? So there you go. Okay, so just throw away your plates and we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of Rotary? I will see everybody in this room Saturday night at casino night. Okay. We are adjourned.